Be sure to come over and visit him. I was getting ready for this show, and this fellow named Archie over in Montgomery Creek gave me this old vintage Badman magazine. And so I figured I better do some homage to the Badman. This one is a fellow named Henry Nibbs wrote this poem down about a man named Boomer Johnson. Well, Mr. Boomer Johnson was getting old in spots, but who ever thought a bad man would take to wrestling pans and pots? But he had his share of killing, and his draw was getting slow, so he gave up punching cattle and he started punching dough. Now our foreman up and hired him because he thought maybe time had wrote him tame. But you know a snake don't get no sweeter just by changing of his name. Now it's not that Boomer couldn't cook. He could cook to make you smile. It's just he stirred his fodder in a most peculiar style. He didn't use those matches. Just left them up on the shelf. Just kerosene and cussing, and the kindling would light itself. You know, cooking and killing, man, it's not so far apart. I think that's why Boomer took to practice in this art. He could use the sight on the barrel of his gun to cut a pie lid quick, and then he'd crimp it with his muzzle just to make the edges stick. And his donuts, he made them solid, and then it would curl your hair. Watch him plug those donuts when he threw them in the air. He could shoot them dead center every time his pistol spoke till the can was full of donuts and the whole room was full of smoke. Well, we was getting jumpy, but he just couldn't understand why his pistol made us nervous when his cooking was so grand. So he just kept on performing, and it came as no surprise when he started marking tombstones on the covers of his pies. I tell you, didn't taste no better, didn't taste no worse, but sitting in that kitchen was like living in a hearse. We didn't talk. We just took what we got till our stomachs were bellered to keep from getting shot. Well, one bright morning at breakfast, I was feeling kind of low. Boom, passed the donuts. I told him, plenty. No, just coffee this time. My stomach's a wreck. And then I saw the urge for killing swell the wattles in his neck. Spurned my cooking. He's putting donuts on his gun, shoves it in my gizzard and says, "Boy, you're taking one." Yeah, Boomer was set to start a graveyard. But for once, he was mistook. Because me, not wanting donuts, I just up and salts the cook. Did they fire him? I tell you folks, nothing left to fire. Just a row of smiling faces and another cook for hire. And if he's cooking now, well, what I mean is, where they ain't got no matches, and they don't need no kerosene. There's another fella got into an altercation in Idaho and took off. Marshal tracked him down and with a posse, and they killed him up near Bear Lake, where Idaho kind of runs into Utah. Well, when they searched his saddlebags, they found a poem he had just written, ink barely dry, called the poem, "The Prayer of the Wayward Cowboy." I'll just say a little prayer to the great cowboy in the sky, the one who rides the range up there as the clouds go passing by. Because I've done a bit of wrestling, had a drink or two, but went right up to the gate. I hope you'll let me pass on through. I had a wife in Tennessee. She's the one I love the best. Then she died of cholera. That's when I headed west. I rode herd from Abilene up to Santa Fe, and then hit the whiskey. I guess I lost my way. Never been a praying man, not much on my knees, but I've often praised the one above as I rode among the trees, or watched the golden sunset light up the western sky, or heard the river's mighty roar, or watched the eagles fly. I ended up in Montana in a town they called Virginia City. Met up with the plumber gang. You're too mean even for me. So I quit the gang before the vigilantes got him, so I didn't have to hang. And then I went to Idaho. I thought I'd pan for gold, but I never found a nugget, and the winters were too cold. That's when I had to kill a man. He deserved to die. But Marshall doesn't think that way, and that's why I'm on the fly. Yeah, I killed that devil. But you know, I've saved many more, like when Davy fell in the river and I pulled him to the shore. But the law shows no mercy. And the marshal wants my hide. And he's got a posse coming. And I don't know where to hide. In the great rodeo of life, I've had a wild ride. But now, Bronx busted me. And I don't know where to hide. So I just say this little prayer to the great cowboy in the sky. Because now I can see the posse coming. And I know I'm going to die. That's enough of that killing stuff. I think we need a little love here. This is another S.O.M. Barker poem called Jack Potter's Court. This is a true story. Jack Potter was a good friend of Mr. Barker's. And Jack Potter was a man who knew the ways of steers, from the burnests in their hairy tails to the ticks that chawed their ears. A Texican and a cowhand to the saddle, bred and born. He could count a trail herd on the move and never miss a horn. But one day on the tally back in 1884, got to acting real dreamy, and he sure did miss the score. You know, the old man recognized the symptoms. He said, "Jack, you ain't no good like this. I give you 10 days. Ride out. Find out what's amiss." Well, amiss was just what ailed him, for he fell in love for sure with a gal named Cordiette, who was pretty, sweet, and pure. So he rode out 100 miles, sweating at the thought of sweetsome ways to ask her the way a fellow ought, like, "Just a humble cowhand, Miss Cordy, if you please, here to beg your heart and hand upon my bended knees." It all seemed mighty simple, rehearsed upon the trail, but when he reached Miss Cordy's door, the words all seemed to fail. It was, "Howdy, ma'am, how's the crops? How's your ma and pa?" When it came to asking her, he couldn't come to talk. So he took her to a dance one night. The horse she rode was his. "Sure is a nice horse," Miss Cordy said. Jack, "But it is." And then riding home late that night, the moon was on the rise, and Jack got to talking about the stars up in the skies and how they could guide a trail herd just like sailing ships. But words of love and marriage just would not pass his lips. So we started talking about the hoss. He said, "You know, he's fancy gaited. He don't fight to keep his head." "Sure is a dandy horse," she said, and let out a sigh. And Jack said, "Well, you could have him. I mean, maybe when I die." He figured she might savvy what he meant and maybe guess, give him that sweet answer that he longed for, namely, yes. But by the time he reached the ranch house, he still was wondering how he'd ever pop the question. And he better do it now, or he'd have to wait and sweat and suffer till the drive ended in the fall, and by then she might be married and he'd lose her after all. So he hung up her saddle and led his pony to the gate. He said, "I guess I'd best be drifting, man. Man, it's kind of getting late." And her eyes, they shone like starlight, and her lips looked sweet as flowers. Jack says, "Now, Miss Cordy, this here horse, is it mine or is it ours?" "It's ours, Jack," she said, and her voice was just as sweet as moss. Now, Jack, he claims he kissed her, but she claims he kissed the hoss. So I'm going to end with two. Like, one is sort of the spirit of the West. I call it One West. And it's about a time I was riding through the ravine. Came across a rattlesnake. My pony reared up, threw me off, and left me there to bake. My leg was broke. I couldn't move a lick. And that snake just slithered up, bit me real quick. I tried to get up, but with that venom in my vein, my bones started rattling, and I thought I was going insane. And then I looked up, and I saw an old Blackfoot with an eagle feather hanging from his gray head. As I was slumped to the ground, thinking, man, I think I'm gonna be dead. Well, he reached down in a deerskin pouch by his pants, pulled out a big old rattle out. He sprinkled something over me and started chanting started chanting a song. And then that's about all I remember, because my consciousness was gone. But when I woke up, there was a big fire burning bright, and the old man was sitting there shimmering in the light. He said, I set your leg, and I sucked the venom out. And now I'm going to tell you what this is all about. Because when I was a young brave, hunting bighorn sheep on a mountain ledge, hunting bighorn sheep, I fell into a crevice, sharp and deep. An old trapper happened by, saved my life. And now I feel that the Great Spirit has brought me here somehow to even the score. What I'm trying to say is I'm going to stay here till you get well, and then I'll be on my way. And he did. And folks, that's not the only time that my life was saved by a man who wasn't white. There was a crazy old Mexican who backed me up in a nasty barroom fight. And I traveled a herd with a buffalo cowboy, and we got awful tight, swapping tales about our life beneath the starry night. So what I'm saying is I feel that this here land was made by a multitude of men, and women too, I reckon, of all kinds of kin and kin. So when it comes to Brandon folks, I feel that it's best to be like the Lord. You love them all, and let the squabbles rest. And then finally, in this time that we're living through, because I feel the spirit of the West, the spirit of the pioneer, is what has, and the spirit of great people, the cowboy spirit, has always gone through thick and thin, good times and bad times, but we come out good. So this is a poem I wrote a while back called The Resurrection of the American Dream. I'm going to close with that. Before I do, I just want to say thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Diamond Mountain Casino. Thank you, all you good folks. And thank you, Larry and Sourdough, for a wonderful evening. Rise, America, land of ancient dreams. Send forth your light in sacred laser beams. In New York Harbor, a stony lady stands who holds a torch to light up all the lands. The sweat and tears of humble, toiling men will saturate that torch, and then ignited by a fire divine will make the light of freedom shine. Rise, America, land of ancient dreams. Send forth your light in sacred laser beams. The darkened skies have caused your flames to flicker. Politicians moan, clerics bigger, but now a fire has come to hasten our correction, to burn the chaff, to smelt the ore, to show us new direction. Let us hear no more of selfish cynics desponding, but rather dance with all our hearts to love's great call responding. Rise, America, land of ancient dreams. Send forth your light in sacred laser beams. I see Hispanics, blacks, and whites dancing in the northern lights. I see the gods of Asgard holding hands with holy men from hidden lands. Oriental sages, men of science, Native American medicine men, in a strong alliance, standing up in strong defiance, sharing their blood in a common reliance upon the holy primal word that Adam in the garden heard. Rise, America, land of ancient dreams, send forth your light in sacred laser beams.